Hi guys, welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to show you the full process of cutting out this damaged plasterboard wall, putting a new piece in and plastering it ready for painting. Just going to start by marking out where I need to cut this wall. There's quite a bit of damage there, as you can see, and I'm just going to put a nice level line at the top there. And I've already cut my new piece of plasterboard. I measured my marks and it was about 800 by 600 millimeters, and the easiest way is just to hold up the cut piece and mark around it, so that piece is going to fit in perfectly to the hole. And we're just going to hold the top nice and level with that line we marked and make sure it lines up with our other marks, and we'll just mark around that with a pencil. Just make sure you hold that bit of board on the wall so it doesn't move, and also put a little mark at the top so you know which is up, and you don't want to be putting it up the other way and then not fitting. So good little tip there. You can see that wall's quite damaged all the way there. You can see the big hole in the middle, and then it's quite damaged on the edge. That's why we're cutting out such a big piece. Now I'm using a Stanley knife. You can use a multi-tool if you like. The only thing with the multi-tool, you're going to create a lot of dust. So I'm just working in someone's house, so just to avoid the dust I'm using my Stanley knife, which works just as well. And we're going to cut that out. And you can see that's actually been repaired previously by another contractor, and they haven't done it right. They've just sort of filled that patch in, and it just hasn't held and it's broken away again. So I said to the client it needed to be replaced originally, not just filled in. So I said I'll do it properly, cut out the whole piece of wall and put a new piece in. You can see there that whoever's done it previously has just filled it with sort of a painter's putty and got it looking as good as they can, and just painted over it, and it's just given way over time, and it's so heavy it's just fallen in on itself. You can see all the putty there that's just filling in, and you can see that it's a bit bent around the edges, which is why we've cut out so much there. Might as well do the whole thing properly and put a new piece in. So we'll take that piece out, get rid of that in the skip. And what we want to do is we just want to cut all those edges off nicely, remove any fixings that are left in. We want that new piece of plasterboard fitting in nice and snug. There's some dried up glue there, we just want to chisel that off and just tidy up. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, I like to just remove the paint around the edge just by doing a really light score. All we're really doing is just putting a light score through the paint so we can peel that off. I like to do that just for when we're putting our plaster on. It's just a bit more adhesion onto the plasterboard rather than onto the paint, I find, and just makes things a bit stronger. And the paint normally comes off quite easy. You can see that bit of plaster underneath the paint, it just comes off nicely there. And then where the paint's on the paper, that paper actually just peels off nice and easy. And then our compound will be sticking to the paper rather than the paint, and just that better adhesion, as I say. Now we've got two timber studs running up there. Now ideally it would have been good to cut onto the center of the studs, but I just wanted to cut all that broken board out, so we're just going to have to put some new timbers in. And we've just got that little tight area on the right side there. We're going to have to slip some timbers in, which I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And ideally having some full lengths of timber would be the better option here. I don't carry big lengths of timber in the truck, so I'm normally doing smaller patches, so just using small offcuts works just fine. We just want to put some around the perimeter of the patch, and we're just going to hold in the timbers there, and we're just going to screw in the screws just so when we put our new piece in, it's all going to tie in and level up nicely, because we want to get the patch pretty much perfect, and that'll just make life a lot easier when we put our plaster on. Everything's nice and flat and level, it just makes life a lot easier. So we're just putting in some on the timbers on the corners, up the sides, and just this right hand side here I've got just some offcuts of plywood that'll just slip in there. We just want to hold those in there while we screw them in. And we'll just get some fixings up there. And we'll just put some fixings into the timber studs where the existing board is. And then once we've got all our fixings in, we just want to check that you've cleaned off all the corners with your knife, no little dags hanging about there. That'll keep out the new piece and create a bump. Then it's going to cause issues trying to plaster it, so we want it pretty much perfect, and that piece should just fit in absolutely snug because we've marked around it, and that just works a lot easier than cutting out the hole first and then cutting the new piece to fit. So that's a good little tip there. And now we're just going to screw this off. And just screwing onto all those new timbers we've installed around the perimeter is just going to bring those two boards nice and level. Couple into the existing studs, and you can see where you know where to screw because you've already got your screws in there and existing. And once that's all screwed off, I just like to take my sanding block, just scuff up those areas where we've taken the paint off. Any dags, get those, and we've just got a nice smooth flat joint to plaster now. Now there's many ways you can do this. I'm going to do this the easiest way for a beginner if you've never done it before, and we're just going to use the pre-mixed multi-purpose joint compound, the taping in compound. And I'm just going to do the opposites at the same time. So we're just going to put our compound on, then put our tape into the compound and just press that tape in. Want a nice layer of compound on there to start with, and then we're going to lay our tape in. And we're going to do the two other opposites with two uprights at the same time. We don't need to overlap the tape, we're just going to run our tape from the edge of the previous tape to the other edge. If you're wondering what this yellow fibre fuse is, this is New Zealand's equivalent of fibre fuse called rock tape, made by Jib, New Zealand's main manufacturer of plasterboard and drywall compounds. So once we've got our tapes pressed in, we're just going to go over the whole lot with another layer so that tape is embedded into the compound. That's where it's going to gain its strength. I'm just going to clean off those edges. And we're just going to let that dry. So we're back the next day, nice and dry, and we're going to give it a scrape, clean off any high bits. Now if you've watched my channel before, what I like to do is just do a nice tight sort of a skim coat over it first, because when we're working on a painted surface we always tend to get air bubbles. Those air bubbles are just the water is trying to escape from the plaster to dry, and it can't do through paint, it needs to come out through the surface. So doing a nice tight skim coat first and just leaving that for 3 or 4 minutes just to firm up and sort of be semi-dry. So we're just giving that a few minutes, then we're going to hit it with our filler coat, then we will not get any air bubbles. It's a great little tip there if you're working over a painted surface when you're getting those air bubbles, just to do a nice tight skim first. Don't need to let it dry, just leave it for 3 or 4 minutes just to firm up, and then you can hit it with your filler coat and you won't get any air bubbles. So I'm just going to use my 14-inch trowel. I'm just going to give it a nice fill right round. Now if you're a beginner, take your time doing this. You want to get that compound on. See, I'm just putting the compound on nice and just to cover everything. Once the compound's on and I've got it where I want it, then I can start cleaning off. So I'm still putting the compound on. Now I've got it pretty good, and I'm just going to do one sweep right round with one lift off. So I've just got one little lip when that's dry just to clean off, and I'm just going to clean the edges, just holding the knife on an angle so it doesn't dig in. I just want to feather in those edges. All the way around, and then we're going to let that dry, come back the next day. So here we are back the next day. We're just going to give that a scrape again just to get it nice and flat, and we're going to clean off that little lip where we lifted off with the trowel. I see your drying compound scrapes quite easily. Now I'm back on my last visit here. Now if you're a beginner or if you're doing this in your own home, you can do this final coat however you like with a trowel or a knife, and then again you can let that dry, come back the next day and sand it. But what I'm doing, because I don't want to come back on another visit, I want to try and save the client some money, and I'm going to do a real tight final coat just using my 6-inch knife, and I'm going to get out the heat gun, and it's just going to give it a dry up for 5 minutes with the heat gun so I can just sand it straight away. It just saves me another visit, saves the client some money. So if you want to do it this way, feel free, but if it's at your own home, just let it dry with the air temperature and sand it when it's nice and dry. But just by doing this really thin final coat, I can just get the heat gun out and dry it quickly, and saves me that extra trip out. So there we are, we've done that. It's already drying, it's a hot day, and just to speed things up, we'll just give it a quick 5-minute blast with the heat gun. Because this plaster is air drying, you can use fans or heat guns to dry it. You cannot do this with a setting compound. You need that setting compound to set before it dries. So, but perfectly fine with air drying compounds. So that's nice and dry already. So now it's time for a final sand. Now you can just use a hand sander or whatever you have, pole sander, even a sponge, but I'll just get out my Tool drywall sander just to suck up the dust, keep the area clean. So just a quick sand, and we're just going to check that over with the light. Just holding a light up against the wall shows any imperfections. Just make sure you clean up those edges. Make sure those edges are all nicely blended in. And that's pretty much it. That's ready for painting. So that'll need a sealer undercoat on it first over the whole thing, followed by a couple of top coats of paint. If you're doing that yourself, do the undercoat first and then give that a light sand, and then you can do your next 2 top coats. I'm just going to finish by cleaning up the job site. Get some protective plastic down on the carpet just to keep things all nice and tidy. Just shows you that professionalism that contractors have. And that's it, that's all that done, ready. If you like these videos, consider subscribing, really helps the channel, helps me make more videos. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, leave a comment. And I'll see you on the next one.